T9C got the fucking juice.
Silver's the new gold.
Yeah, it takes this shit sick.
T9C got the fucking juice.
Silver's the new gold.
Yeah, it takes this shit sick.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I'm your host, JT. We got a lot of things to discuss on today's episode, man. Isaiah Simmons got traded to the New York Giants. Got to give my thoughts and reactions to that trade. The Jonathan Taylor sweepstakes are starting to heat up, and I'm really afraid about how good Jonathan Taylor could make the potential teams that are interested in trading for him. The Buccaneers, are they going to suck? Or could they actually surprise and shock the NFL and exceed expectations? And lastly, I'm going to be giving you guys my expectations for Carson Beck going into the 2023 college football season. Before we start, If you're new to the channel and you haven't already, make sure that you leave a like, subscribe to the channel. We go live every day, Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Listen to the audio version of the JT Sports Podcast. We're not just available on YouTube. You can find us on all podcasting platforms, Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcast from, you can find the JT Sports Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode and you want to know how you can support the channel, all you got to do is leave us a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify. It only takes 15 seconds to do, and it's a free way to support the channel. All you got to do is type in the JT Sports Podcast on Apple or Spotify, and it will pop up. Or you can go down to the link down below in the description, scroll down a little bit, and there will be the links to the Apple and Spotify versions of the podcast. Now, let's start off with the biggest news of the day. Arizona has traded former top 10 pick Isaiah Simmons to the New York Giants, and Joe Schoen has New York Giants fans going freaking insane right now. There are so many Giants fans who are so happy and super optimistic about what Isaiah Simmons can do and Wink Martindale's defense. And if you are calling this trade a finesse or a robbery, I agree with you. The Arizona Cardinals invested a top 10 pick into Isaiah Simmons in 2020, right? This is somebody who hasn't really been utilized properly. He may not look like a great player, but I think it's more due to the fact that he's been underutilized. You see, when Isaiah Simmons was coming out of Clemson, he was a really polarizing prospect. The reason for this is because you didn't really know what position he would be able to excel at the NFL level. This is somebody who at Clemson was playing defensive back. He could have played corner, safety. He can play linebacker, outside linebacker. He pretty much was a positionless football player coming out of college. And Arizona took him, and they didn't really know how to maximize his ability. And Isaiah Simmons is one of those kind of players that he can't get drafted by any team. He has to go to a specific team that runs a scheme that's going to allow Isaiah Simmons to showcase his versatility. And the Arizona Cardinals were never able to crack the code to Isaiah Simmons. This is also the same franchise that drafted Hassan Reddick, and they couldn't make it work with him neither. And they're also struggling right now with Zaven Collins. Going to the New York Giants for Isaiah Simmons gives him a great opportunity to reset his career and get coached by one of the best defensive coordinators in the game right now. Wink Martindale? You mean to tell me that you don't think he's going to be able to find a way to utilize Isaiah Simmons' unique athleticism? Is he going to play defensive back, linebacker? We don't really know. Word on the street is that they plan to play him as a linebacker next to Bobby Okereke. And Isaiah Simmons, although he has struggled up to this point of his NFL career, it hasn't been all downs for him. He has had some impressive moments. He also has had some pretty good games as well. It's just that when you have a player like Isaiah Simmons, who comes out of college and splits time playing so many different positions, he comes into the NFL solid at different positions, but never great at one position. Can Wink Martindale and this New York Giants coaching staff make Isaiah Simmons a great linebacker if they choose to play him at linebacker? If they want to play him at safety, that would be a pretty good selection to change his position to. This dude has great size. He's a fantastic athlete. I think he's a pretty good tackler. And if you play him at safety, there's a variety of different ways you can utilize him. You can utilize him in the box if you want him to cover against tight ends, running backs out of the backfield. Maybe you can use him in nickel or dime packages as a nickel or dime linebacker. There's just so much versatility that Isaiah Simmons can bring to your defense. You just have to find the right coach to be able to unlock it. And the Arizona Cardinals traded this man for a 7th-round pick. Arizona Cardinals fans, you guys can defend this bullshit trade all you want to. You can say, oh, we were going to cut him anyway. it doesn't matter. It still doesn't, negate the fact that you drafted Isaiah Simmons with a top 10 pick. You weren't able to develop him, and you're trading him for a bag of chips and a flat soda. You can't defend this. This is not a great trade. You could have at least received a 5th-round selection for Isaiah Simmons. It's not like this dude was doing nothing on the bench. It's not like a Trey Lance situation. Isaiah Simmons actually is a starting caliber player. Now, where is he going to start? That's another question that has to be answered by the New York Giants coaching staff. But you essentially traded a starting caliber player to the New York Giants for a 7th-round pick. Now, if you turn that 7th-round pick into a potential great player, kudos to you. But right now, this looks like a fleecing and a masterclass finesse by Joe Schoen and the New York Giants organization. And I'm not high on the New York Giants. I'm just going to keep it 100 with you guys. But I do like the moves that they've made with Darren Waller and then picking up Isaiah Simmons. Isaiah Simmons, when you have a player that can play multiple positions and also has a great ability to bring something different to your defense. He's 6'4", 238 pounds, running a 4.4, 4.45. This dude is a freak. And anytime you can give Isaiah Simmons to a coach like Wink Martindale, he's going to be able to turn that thing into something special. Some Giants fans feel like they got the great value brand version of Michael Parsons. Gotta disagree with that. There's only one Michael Parsons. I understand where the comparisons are coming from, though. But Isaiah Simmons and Michael Parsons are not remotely the same player at all. Isaiah Simmons is not good when it comes to being able to get after the quarterback. Michael Parsons can play linebacker, and he can also play edge rusher as well. He can play on the D-line, inside linebacker, outside linebacker, wherever you want to put Michael Parsons on your front 7. He can excel at any position. Isaiah Simmons isn't the kind of player that Michael Parsons is. Isaiah Simmons brings you more when it comes to finding a linebacker who can help you in pass coverage, can man up against tight ends, maybe receivers in the slot. He's not the same kind of versatile chess piece that Michael Parsons is. Michael Parsons excels at getting after the quarterback at different positions. Isaiah Simmons isn't somebody who stands out for his ability to get after the quarterback. He stands out for what he can be as a weapon on your defense, for what he can bring to your pass unit if he can improve his pass coverage and his athleticism with that closing speed that he has. He could be a monster when it comes to generating a lot of tackles behind the line of scrimmage. He can be a really disruptive player, but he's not the same caliber of player that Michael Parsons is. So if you are expecting Michael Parsons out of Isaiah Simmons, your expectations are extremely misguided. Isaiah Simmons and Michael Parsons are not the same player. Even with Isaiah Simmons, let's say he reaches his full potential with the New York Giants, he still wouldn't be Michael Parsons. They just are two different players with two different skill sets. Yes, they're versatile, but that doesn't mean that they have the ability to do the same thing. And when I'm looking at the New York Giants defense this year, I like their secondary. And I love their front 7. Their biggest question mark has been linebacker. Does Isaiah Simmons fix that issue? Do you now have a really good linebacker core with Bobby Okereke and Isaiah Simmons? I don't know yet. And I think if you're a Giants fan, of course you're going to say, hell yeah, Isaiah Simmons is going to be that dude, but there's a reason why he's getting traded for a 7th-round pick. We can blame Arizona for being unable to develop this guy, but we also have to point the finger at Isaiah Simmons and ask him, okay, why were you unable to reach your potential in Arizona? You can only put so much blame on the coach and not the player. There's a reason why he's playing for the New York Giants and no longer Arizona Cardinal. Not saying that to knock him, not saying that to try to knock down the significance of this trade, because I do think that this trade can work out. But there have been similar trades like this in the past where we've seen a guy get drafted in the first round, not work out with one team, get traded to another team, and he still be shit. Isaiah Simmons very well could still be a bad player or a not great player with the New York Giants. This isn't something that we can just right now call a swindling or finesse. In terms of the compensation, yeah, you can. You getting a starting linebacker or a starting caliber player for a 7th-round pick, that's always a win in my opinion. But to call this a fleecing, if we're talking about, what Isaiah Simmons is going to be able to be with the New York Giants, I think you got to slow your roll just a little bit, okay? Yes, you did get Isaiah Simmons for a great value. You have somebody who is low risk, high reward, and you're getting this for a 7th-rounder. But that doesn't mean that he's going to immediately address an area of concern and that he's immediately going to just turn into this future gold jacket Hall of Famer. We got to see if this is actually going to be able to work. We believe this can work. I believe he'll be good with the New York Giants, but there's no guarantee. You see, there's a lot of Giants fans that make it seem like, oh, hell yeah. We got the next great linebacker. We got a fantastic future all-pro that we got for a 7th-round pick. What the hell is Arizona doing? I get why you Giants fans are excited, but people had this same excitement when the Detroit Lions traded for Denzel Mims, and he didn't even make the roster. So I like Isaiah Simmons. I think him getting coached up by a defensive coordinator, Wink Martindale, is going to be able to elevate him. Is going to be able to help him get a little bit better when it comes to figuring out what he truly is in the National Football League. Is this guy truly a linebacker, or should he just be playing safety and just strictly be a safety? We don't know. But I do like this trade. I do think that Isaiah Simmons could end up having a really good career turnaround with the New York Giants. But we just can't say this is just set in stone going to work. We can call this a fleecing, like I said, based on the trade value that the Giants gave up for Isaiah Simmons, somebody who is still a starting player in this league. But we got to slow our roll when it comes to thinking that this guy is going to turn into a Pro Bowl caliber player just right out the gate. Let's just wait and see what he does with Wink Martindale. You do have a guy who's going to be able to start for you, but are you going to have somebody that can be more than just a good starter for you? You having somebody that legitimately is going to be able to be a game changer on this defense. I'm a little bit scared about these Jonathan Taylor trade rumors. And the reason why I'm scared is because the two teams that reportedly have been showing the most interest in Jonathan Taylor do not need this guy. What the hell do the Philadelphia Eagles need Jonathan Taylor for? They already got Buff Batman, Devontae Smith, Jalen Hurts, Dallas Goedert, one of the best defensive lines and offensive lines in the NFL. Why the hell do they need to be even more overpowered than what they already are? I was telling my classmate earlier today, if the Philadelphia Eagles get Jonathan Taylor, just give them the fucking Super Bowl. What's even the point of playing the season? I get that, the game's got to be played and the greatest teams don't always win the Super Bowl. But if Jonathan Taylor gets traded to the damn Philadelphia Eagles, you mean to tell me that you don't think they're the favorites to win it all? Who's better than Philadelphia if they get Jonathan Taylor? Tell me, who is a better team than the Philadelphia Eagles if they acquire Jonathan Taylor? The Cowboys? Stop it. The 49ers? Come on, man. If the Philadelphia Eagles get Jonathan Taylor, they at least are making it back to the Super Bowl. At least. This team is way too loaded to be needing a Jonathan Taylor. Now, getting Jonathan Taylor doesn't make the Eagles a worse team. It only makes them better. So if you put Jonathan Taylor in the damn Philadelphia Eagles, if you're a Dallas Cowboy fan and you finally think this is the year, you might want to go ahead and push those expectations back to 2024 because 2023 is probably going to belong to the Philadelphia Eagles when it comes to winning the NFC. Now, the second team that has a lot of interest in trading for Jonathan Taylor are the Miami Dolphins. Now, for the life of me, I don't understand why the Miami Dolphins have interest in improving every other position on their football team other than the offensive line. But if they get Jonathan Taylor, I'm not going to hold it against them. This is already one of the scariest offenses in the NFL. You got Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and then you add Jonathan Taylor in the backfield? That's one of the best non-quarterback position groups in the NFL. You look at what they already have at wide receiver and Waddle and Tyreek Hill, and then Jonathan Taylor, one of the best running backs in the NFL. So they could have a top 5 running back, a top 5 wide receiver, and the top 10 wide receiver on the same damn roster. Even though their offensive line wouldn't be great, when you have a guy like Jonathan Taylor, he can help elevate your offensive line in a sense. The reason for that is because he's somebody that has great vision and he's also super powerful. So even if the offensive line isn't creating gaping holes, with his ability to make things happen after contact, Jonathan Taylor would make the Miami Dolphins an already scarier team than what they already are. And the big problem with the Miami Dolphins that a lot of people don't talk about is that last year they could get too one-dimensional on offense. There were games last year when the Miami Dolphins just completely abandoned the run game. This wouldn't happen if they get Jonathan Taylor. And I could put money on that. They get Jonathan Taylor, they're running this man at least 20 to 25 times a game, and he would take such a big load off of Tua Tagovailoa. When you go into the playoffs, you don't need to have a great run game. The Kansas City Chiefs won the Super Bowl with the 7th-round pick in Isaiah Pacheco. Cam Akers was RB1 for the Rams when they won the Super Bowl over the Cincinnati Bengals. You don't need to have a great running back or a great rushing attack to win a championship, but you do have to be able to play complementary football when you get in the postseason. You don't have to be great at running the football, but you at least have to be able to do it when you want to do it. You got to be able to run the football so you can take time off the clock when you're up a lot of points and to take some of the load off your quarterback. There's a lot of pressure on Tua Tagovailoa going into this season. And I'm not saying that he's not going to be able to handle it, but I am saying if you're the Miami Dolphins and you got a chance to make life easier for your franchise quarterback, why wouldn't you pull the trigger? If the Miami Dolphins acquire Jonathan Taylor, if you're a Jets fan, a Bills fan, a Patriots fan, you mean to tell me that you don't think they wouldn't even be even better than what they already are now? People are already considering the Miami Dolphins to be dark horse Super Bowl contenders. With Jonathan Taylor, he legitimizes them, if that's even how you say it, as a Super Bowl contender. They would go from dark horse contenders to legit Super Bowl contenders. And you probably could make the argument that maybe they end up being the second best team in the AFC behind Kansas City, at least right now, before week 1 of the season kicks off. Outside of Kansas City, who else could you say will have a better roster than the Miami Dolphins if they get Jonathan Taylor? Cincinnati? I mean, their offensive line is really good. They got really great receivers. Joe Mixon is a stud, but I think that's a legitimate debate. The New York Jets, the Buffalo Bills. I mean, Jonathan Taylor would do nothing but make the Miami Dolphins offense even more appealing to the national media. Everybody already loves the Miami Dolphins. The only reason why people question Miami is because they question Tua's health. And they question the offensive line. But this offensive line shouldn't be god-awful. It shouldn't be dog shit like how it has been the last 2 years. This is an offensive line that should at least be able to be average to maybe slightly above average. And that's good enough for them to be able to win the Super Bowl because this offense is predicated on timing, rhythm, and being able to run the football. Mike McDaniels, where does he come from? He comes from the Kyle Shanahan coaching tree. And do you remember what happened to the 49ers run game when they acquired Christian McCaffrey? Their run game went from being average to slightly above average to being the best in the NFL once they got CMC. This Miami Dolphins offense with Jonathan Taylor in the backfield, fam? Who's stopping this offense? Who? I mean, you can be a Bills fan, a Jets fan, a Patriots fan, whoever you root for. But if you're going to tell me that Jonathan Taylor going to the Miami Dolphins wouldn't make them a better team, then you're just a fucking hater. You are. How can you say Jonathan Taylor, who is one of the best running backs in the NFL since he's gotten drafted, wouldn't elevate Miami? They will be a scary team, fam. They already are dead terrifying right now. And they don't have Jonathan Taylor. And now they're talking about acquiring him? Like running back was really an issue? They already tried to get Josh Jacobs. The Miami Dolphins are one of those teams that if they get a guy like Jonathan Taylor, he may end up being the missing piece for them. This offensive line doesn't have to be great. You don't need to have a great offensive line to go far in the playoffs if you're able to compensate for not having a great offensive line with playmaking ability. Jonathan Taylor will be another home run threat for the Dolphins offense. They already have two of them at receiver. Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, they're a threat to take it to the end zone every time they touch the football. Same thing with Jonathan Taylor. I like Raheem Mostert. He's not a bad running back. He was actually pretty good last year. It's just the Dolphins kind of forgot to feed him. But you get Jonathan Taylor, I don't give a damn. I don't care if the running back position isn't as valuable as what it used to be. Getting Jonathan Taylor doesn't make you a worse team. It only makes you better. It's like extra credit on the test. It's like you don't need it, but if you get it right, you appreciate the additional points. The Jonathan Taylor trade sweepstakes are really starting to heat up, bruh. And you better be careful what you wish for. If you were somebody who felt like Jonathan Taylor deserved to get traded for Indianapolis and you wanted him to get paid, how are you going to feel about that if you're a Cowboys fan and you got to go against him 2 times throughout the season? How are you going to feel if you're a Bills, Jets, or Patriots fan and you got to see a Dolphins offense with Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Jonathan Taylor? I don't care if they got Tua at QB. I don't care how you feel about Tua. I don't care if Tua isn't a great quarterback in your eyes. This roster would be too good for Tua not to be able to get the job done. Jimmy Garoppolo took the 49ers to the Super Bowl one year. You mean to tell me you don't think Tua will be able to do the same thing with the Miami Dolphins with JT, Tyreek, and Jalen Waddle? What? You're mad. You're crazy. You're a little insane. Just because the running back value doesn't have the same importance in the year 2023 that it did in 1975 doesn't mean that getting a great one wouldn't impact your Super Bowl chances. Getting great players does nothing but make you a better team, even if they are at positions that may not be as important to winning a championship as others, such as left tackle and pass rusher. But you can't deny that Jonathan Taylor wouldn't make them a better team. And then the Philadelphia Eagles, just the thought of him going to the Philadelphia Eagles, if I had to choose between the Eagles and the Dolphins, where I would rather see Jonathan Taylor play, I'd rather see him playing for the Miami Dolphins. The AFC is already stacked with great teams. And adding Jonathan Taylor would make the Dolphins one of the top 3 best teams in the conference. But if you give him to the Philadelphia Eagles with Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, a top 5 offensive line, a top 5 defensive line, and Jalen Hurts at quarterback, fam, how do you not pick that team to win it all? I don't want to see Jonathan Taylor in Philadelphia. I think Jonathan Taylor getting traded to the Philadelphia Eagles would be the NFL's equivalent to when Kevin Durant joined the Golden State Warriors. Like, the Dolphins, at least with him going to the Dolphins, there's a chance that they wouldn't be able to make it to the Super Bowl because of that offensive line and plus the concerns that you have with Tua's durability. But if this fool goes to the Philadelphia Eagles, dog, it's raps. How do you not say it's not raps? Seriously, they will have one of the best rosters in the history of the NFL. There wouldn't have been a team as talented as what Philadelphia would be this season if they acquired Jonathan Taylor since the year the Patriots had their undefeated record snapped in the Super Bowl against the New York Giants. I'd rather see him playing for the Dolphins than the Eagles. Because if he goes to the Eagles, I think we pretty much already know who we're picking to win it all. But if he goes to the Dolphins, yes, the Dolphins definitely would elevate themselves in the Super Bowl conversation. But with how much talent there is in the AFC between the quarterback position and just the overall team talent as a whole, the AFC still wouldn't be a gimme for the Miami Dolphins. And they still would have some legit competition to win that division. Meanwhile, Jonathan Taylor on Philly, bro, they're winning their division and they're making it out of the NFC again. The NFC is not as tough as what the AFC is because the AFC is where the majority of the best quarterbacks reside. And the NFC is different. You give the Eagles, who already have the best quarterback in the conference, the best overall team in the conference, one of the best running backs in the NFL, you don't think they're going to win it all? Okay, did you hear Jalen Hurts after they lost that Super Bowl? Have you heard what's been coming out about Jalen Hurts and how he's been responding to that Super Bowl loss? This dude is super motivated. The last thing I want to see is Jonathan Taylor joining the freaking Philadelphia Eagles, who seem to dominate free agency. They dominate in the draft. All you're going to do is kind of put Philadelphia in a position where maybe they could end up making their own dynasty. We keep talking about the Chiefs dynasty, but Jonathan Taylor to the Philadelphia Eagles, you mean to tell me that you don't think they're going to be able to at least win one Super Bowl within the next 3-4 years with him on the roster? These Jonathan trade talks are scaring the hell out of me, man. The last place I want to see Jonathan Taylor at is in a Philadelphia Eagles uniform. And I'd rather not see him playing for the Miami Dolphins. Trade him to the Chicago Bears or something. Like, bro, you mean to tell me that Jonathan Taylor playing for the Colts or the Eagles wouldn't make either one of those teams a better pick to win the Super Bowl than what they already are? He only makes them better. Just saying. You know, the Buccaneers are expected to be in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes, and most NFL fans and analysts expect the Buccaneers to suck water through a garden hose this year. But there may be a chance that the Buccaneers may be able to shock you. Oh, what, JT? You think the Buccaneers could surprise some people? Hear me out. This team is not as bad as what you may think. At wide receiver, you got Chris Godwin and the most underrated wide receiver in NFL history, Mike Evans, who's had 1,000 yards receiving every single season since he's been in the league. Their wide receiving core is really good. Baker Mayfield shouldn't be able to struggle when it comes to finding open receivers because at least one of these dudes should be open. I know Chris Godwin had a down year last year, but he was still rehabilitating from that injury that he suffered the year prior. You got a really good young running back in Rachaad White, who has great vision, great hands out of the backfield. And even though there's not a lot of confidence in Todd Bowles as a head coach, you know that he's always going to have that defense up to par. Their defense did have a slight drop-off last season, but it was more due to injuries than it was coaching. If Baker Mayfield can give the Buccaneers competent quarterback play, you mean to tell me that you don't think they would be able to compete for the NFC South? This division is not good. This is the worst division in the NFL. The Carolina Panthers are allowing their preschooler to get smacked around that quarterback, It doesn't look like they give a damn about protecting him. The Atlanta Falcons, I don't know. They could go either way. They're a really interesting team, but they're not a team that you can look at right now and be like, hell yeah, they're going to win this division. And then the New Orleans Saints, bruh, I'm not putting a single ounce of faith in Dennis Allen as a head coach. I'm sorry, Saints fans. You guys got a really good roster, but you're not going to sell me on Dennis Allen. I'll take Todd Bowles before I take Dennis Allen. At least Todd Bowles has been able to get a team to the playoffs and had a winning record. And we're not talking about what he did last season with Tampa Bay. We're talking about what he did in his early years as the head coach of the New York Jets. If Baker Mayfield can be a competent quarterback this year, he doesn't have to be great. He doesn't even have to be average. If you can give the Buccaneers just barely below average quarterback play, you're going to have a shot at winning this division because the quarterbacks in this division aren't great. Bryce Young is unproven, even though I'm high on him. Derek Carr, I don't think he's as good as what a lot of people think he is. There's a reason why the Raiders moved on from him. And the Falcons, bruh, there's just as many questions about Desmond Ridder as there are when it comes to Baker Mayfield being named the starting quarterback. Baker Mayfield, although he hasn't been great over the last couple of years, he's been passed around the NFL like, a hot potato. But he has shown the ability that if you can give him decent coaching and a decent team around him, he can win you some games. I know it's fun to make fun of Baker Mayfield, call him sorry, call him a crappy quarterback, call him a bust. But if you can give Baker Mayfield a solid team around him with some solid protection up front, he can deliver. Now, this offensive line is a huge question mark. I mean, they got Tristan Wirfs going from right tackle to left tackle, and it's stressing him out so much that he has to seek some mental therapy for it. Nothing wrong with seeking some mental therapy, but you don't really like hearing that, one of the best players on your team, especially on the offensive line, is having a little bit of anxiety when it comes to his position change. You want Tristan Wirfs to be oozing with confidence. You want Tristan Wirfs saying, hell yeah, fool, I can play right tackle and left tackle and still dominate. You don't want to hear concerns that he's a little bit, anxious about making that position change. They also got another right tackle in Gottlieb, who played guard last season, but he played right tackle most of his time when he was at Central Michigan. I mean, this offensive line is a huge concern, but if this offensive line can improve and this is a decent unit, the Buccaneers can make some noise in this division. This is not a tough division. And I'm not writing off the Tampa Bay Buccaneers just because they got Todd Bowles and Baker Mayfield. Like, I do believe there is a legitimate chance that the Buccaneers could win this division. This division was terrible last year and they won it because they had Tom Brady. They don't got Tom Brady anymore. They don't have reliable. They got to go find a new identity to win. And I like Dave Canales as their offensive coordinator. Dave Canales was on Seattle's coaching staff for a couple of years. And he was on their staff last season when Geno Smith, remember the guy everybody wrote off and didn't write back? Yeah, he ended up having one of the best touchdown to interception ratios in the NFL last year. He was the biggest story in the league. Dave Canales comes to Tampa, and you kind of have a similar situation where Baker Mayfield has been thrown around the league a lot. He's been doubted. He's been extremely scrutinized by the national media. And he has a chance to kind of make the best of his last potential opportunity as a starting quarterback in the NFL with Dave Canales. Dave Canales is going to be running a quarterback-friendly system. This is a system that is going to be tailor-made for Baker Mayfield to have an easy time being able to understand the terminology. This isn't going to be one of those complicated, complex offenses where it may take a couple of weeks for everything to start clicking. Dave Canales is building an offense that should fit Baker Mayfield really well. There's going to be a lot of bootlegs, a lot of play action, getting Baker Mayfield on the move, outside the pocket. When was Baker Mayfield playing his best football? in 2020, the year the Browns went to the playoffs, right? What did the Browns do that season that had Baker Mayfield performing at that level? Using play action, getting him outside the pocket on rollouts, bootlegs. That's where Baker Mayfield thrived. And if Dave Canales can do the same thing that the Browns did with Baker Mayfield in 2020, with the talent that they have at wide receiver, even if their offensive line is shaky, Baker Mayfield can have some success. Now, Baker Mayfield has to do a better job at making better decisions with the football, not being reckless and, the fourth quarter of games. But he has looked really good in the preseason, surprisingly, because when you listen to the reports that were coming out about him out of training camp, you were like, bruh, is this dude even going to be able to beat out Kyle Trask? But he has. And I'm not a Baker Mayfield hater. I actually root for Baker Mayfield. I like his personality. I feel like he's a little misunderstood. But at the same time, the NFL is a performance-based business. And if you don't perform, then you're not going to get a lot of respect in this business. If Baker Mayfield goes out and plays serviceable football for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, all they really need him to do is be a good game manager. Don't turn the damn football over. You're going to have a great defense. We know this. Okay, Todd Bowles, despite all the skepticism about him as the head coach, we can at least trust him to have a great defense. He's proven that. He's proven that no matter how bad his teams are, his defenses are always going to be top notch. It's really just the offense. And there wasn't really any better that the Buccaneers could do at quarterback. You think Jimmy Garoppolo is going to make this team even better than what they are with Baker Mayfield? Jimmy G's better than Baker Mayfield, but not by a huge margin. I think that Baker Mayfield has a really good opportunity to resurrect his career. Good group of wide receivers, great running back in the backfield. Your offensive line may not be great, but I mean, for the most part, Baker Mayfield should be able to have some success in Tampa Bay. And if he can be a top 18 quarterback this year, I think that possibly could be good enough to win the NFC South. When we're looking at Tampa Bay overall, though, from a realistic standpoint and not a hypothetical standpoint, this team probably won't be that good this year. They probably should be in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes. Todd Bowles isn't a great head coach. Even though I'll take him before I trust Dennis Allen, that's not really saying too much. His teams don't really look all that prepared. They don't really make great adjustments. There's a lot of questionable decision-making. Like, y'all remember that damn fake punt against the Cincinnati Bengals, bro? Like, what the hell was up with that? You feel me? So I'm not really expecting the Buccaneers to surprise anybody or to shock us. But I'm at least taking the time to acknowledge that there is a chance that Tampa Bay could surprise. You want to know something funny about being a dominant team? When you're a dominant team like Georgia, people look for just the smallest thing to use against you to doubt you. And people are doubting Georgia's ability to three-peat because of Carson Beck at quarterback. You guys don't know how many damn Tennessee fans have been hitting me up saying, man, JT, we got a great chance to win the East this year, man. Georgia has to come to our house this year, and Carson Beck playing on the road in Rocky Top, it may be a little bit too much for him. Oh, we don't know what to expect from Carson Beck. They got so much great production out of Stetson Bennett that how do you know if Carson Beck is going to be as good as what he was? You want to know what's so funny about all these doubters when it comes to Georgia football and Carson Beck? These probably were the same people doubting Georgia's ability to win a championship when they had Stetson Bennett at quarterback. I bet you that some of the same people who are doubting Carson Beck told you that TCU was going to upset Georgia in the national championship, and you tell me how that went. Georgia's just one of those teams that you shouldn't doubt them because they're having new faces at certain positions. The quarterback position is one of the most important in all of football. But when it comes to Georgia's ability to reload, I'm not really worried about Carson Beck. Carson Beck is better than Stetson Bennett from a talent standpoint. And he probably is better than JT Daniels and Jake Fromm. It's funny how the biggest knock on why people doubted Georgia being able to win the title in the first place was because people questioned if Kirby Smart would be able to develop a good enough quarterback that could lead them to a championship. Everybody thought that you needed to have a Bryce Young or Trevor Lawrence or a Justin Fields caliber quarterback to win a national championship. And yet Georgia has won back-to-back ships with Stetson Bennett at quarterback. Carson Beck is way better than Stetson Bennett when it comes to his arm strength. This dude can throw the football with the best of them. He also is bigger than Stetson Bennett. Carson Beck is 6'4", 226 pounds, and I've actually seen Carson Beck play in person. I went to Riverside High School down in Jacksonville, Florida. I've witnessed Carson Beck play when we played against Mandarin. That same year they won a state championship. We were beating them by a huge margin in the first quarter. And then after the first quarter, I don't know what the hell got into Carson Beck, but he was looking like a man possessed. Carson Beck is the real deal. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen Carson Beck play in person. Did you not see him in the spring game? Oh, it's just a spring game. Bruh, he's doing this against Georgia's first string defense in the spring game. This just isn't anybody. It's not like Georgia hasn't had two legendary defenses the last 2 years. My expectations for Carson Beck is that I expect him to be even better than what Stetson Bennett was. Stetson Bennett was a really good quarterback when it came to distributing the football, playing within structure. Yeah, he had enough athleticism to extend plays, but Carson Beck is way more talented than what Stetson Bennett was. If you were one of those people who felt like JT Daniels should have been starting over Stetson Bennett, and you were one of those people saying that Georgia just needs more talent at quarterback, you got your answers. Well, you got your prayers answered in Carson Beck. Carson Beck was a 4-star recruit coming out of the 2022 recruiting cycle. He beat out Brock Vandagriff, who also was a highly touted quarterback. And just because Carson Beck doesn't have a lot of starting experience doesn't mean he's going to struggle on the road. Have you seen Georgia's schedule this year? Bro, Georgia has the easiest path to a three-peat than any other program in the history of college football over the last couple of years that's had the opportunity to potentially three-peat. Bruh, their toughest game of the season is against Tennessee. They don't play Tennessee until what? Late this year? You look at Carson Beck. Carson Beck should be putting up some monster numbers for Georgia. Oh, JT, like, they don't got great receivers. Dominic Lovett? Do you remember him from Missouri? Yeah, you probably don't if you're one of those people that continue to doubt Georgia. Look at Dominic Lovett. He was one of the highest rated wide receivers coming out of the transfer portal. They got Lad McConkey coming back. They got Brock Bowers, probably the greatest tight end in college football history that Carson Beck is going to be throwing the football to. Oh, they lost Todd Monken. They got Mike Bobo. Mike Bobo isn't a good offensive coordinator, JT. Like, have you heard about Mike Bobo? Yeah, have you heard about Mike Bobo? You do know that Mike Bobo used to be the offensive coordinator for Georgia under Mark Richt. And Georgia had some of their best offenses in program history when Mike Bobo was calling the plays. I think they're going to be fine on offense when it comes to the play calling. People are just looking for reasons to doubt Carson Beck because they're looking for a reason to doubt Georgia. Okay, J.J. McCarthy is more experienced than Carson Beck, but I don't think J.J. McCarthy is as good as what people hype him up to be. He's not that accurate. And plus, against TCU, a team who Michigan was perceived to be far more superior than, he struggled. Didn't he throw like 2 pick sixes? You're going to see way better quarterback play out of Carson Beck than what you're going to see out of J.J. McCarthy this year. And I'm willing to live and die on that hill. And if you're bold enough, if the money's right, and you want to get up with me in the DMs and get a little $20, $30 bet going on who will have a better season, J.J. McCarthy or Carson Beck, I gladly will have no problem taking Carson Beck. Good accuracy, makes good decisions with the football, and he's a way more talented quarterback than what Stetson Bennett was. It's funny how people use Stetson Bennett as a reason to doubt Georgia. You remember when Georgia won their first national championship? People was like, oh, they're frauds. They want to do it again. And they did it again. And now people are looking for another new reason to doubt Georgia. And that reason is going to be, oh, they got a more talented quarterback now. They're not going to be able to get it done. Like, that makes no sense. Carson Beck is a far more physically talented quarterback than what Stetson Bennett was. There's no reason why this offense should take a step back with Carson Beck underneath center. This offense has done nothing but gotten better. Their offensive line is still amongst the best in college football. The wide receiver position has improved. This is the most talent that Georgia has had at receiver in the brick. They don't really utilize the transfer portal all that much, but when they do, best believe they're coming out with some dogs. No pun intended. You look at what Carson Beck is going to be able to do with a Dominic Lovett and Brock Bowers, fam. Bruh, they should easily cruise their way through this SEC schedule that they have. They should smack Tennessee on the road in Rocky Top, shut up those Vols fans, and they should be able to make it to the SEC championship game. Now, will they be able to beat Bama or LSU potentially? We'll see. But I don't think Georgia, if they come up short of being able to three-peat, it's going to happen because Carson Beck wasn't good enough. You remember before Stetson Bennett fully took over the reins at QB, where people were asking for JT Daniels to come back because they felt like they didn't have enough talent at quarterback to win. You finally have that blue chip quarterback that you've been wanting for years. You got Stetson Bennett out the way. He was cool. He got it done. He was a gamer. But now you got a true ultra-talented quarterback that was highly touted coming out of high school. You got a blue chipper now. You got a guy who could be a generational quarterback. He may not be as good as Trevor Lawrence or a Deshaun Watson or Bryce Young, but Carson Beck, I think he's going to be able to pave his own legacy in Georgia and be able to be remembered by this fan base. I think Carson Beck is going to be one of the better quarterbacks that Georgia football has had since Matthew Stafford. And Aaron Murray. Let's not forget about Aaron Murray. Aaron Murray kind of is my childhood at quarterback. When I first got into watching college football, Aaron Murray was one of my favorite players to watch. Being honest, love me some Aaron Murray. But I think Carson Beck is going to be better than what Georgia has had at quarterback in the last decade, bruh. Jake Fromm was solid, but I think Carson Beck, this dude just has all the tools to be one of the best quarterbacks in college football. Arm strength, decision-making, elite accuracy, good ball placement. Carson Beck is the real deal at quarterback for Georgia. And if you are doubting Carson Beck and you think that Georgia is not going to be able to three-peat because he's going to be behind center at quarterback, you're about to get another wake-up call. Just like how a lot of folks who thought TCU was going to upset Georgia, they got a reality check and they got a wake-up call. Like, you see, people hate dominance because they don't like to see the same team continuing to win. They want to see different faces. People just hate dominance in sports. We root for the underdog. It was fun to root for Stetson Bennett because he was the underdog. It was fun to root for Georgia because you wanted Kirby Smart to eventually be able to get one over on Nick Saban. You wanted Georgia to prevail. It's easy to root for a team when they haven't been dominant. You see how people love Golden State and Steph Curry before they started winning all those championships. And as soon as Golden State started to win too much, people started to hate on them. People started to doubt them. When people doubted Golden State the year before last, guess what happened? They won another championship. When people doubted Alabama, guess what happened? They had Devontae Smith winning the Heisman Trophy, damn near 3 Heisman finalists, and Najee Harris, Mac Jones, and Devontae, and they won the national freaking championship. You see, one thing about greatness is that greatness tends to prevail more times than not. Georgia is too dominant of a program for this team to just completely take a step back because they got a new face at quarterback. Bruh, Georgia doesn't rebuild. They reload. He's a 4-star quarterback. Some of y'all non-Georgia fans are talking about Carson Beck like he was a 2 or 3-star recruit, which is insane to me. Mac Jones was a 3-star recruit. Just because Carson Beck had to wait for his time doesn't mean that he's going to end up not being great. Mac Jones waited how many years at Alabama to start and led them to a national championship? Georgia was winning championships with Stetson Bennett, who is not as talented as what Carson Beck is. Carson Beck, I think he's probably going to have 30 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. He'll complete around 66 to 68% of his passes. And I think that he's going to lead Georgia to their 3rd consecutive national championship. This is it for this episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. If you haven't already, make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel. We go live every day, Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. If you enjoyed today's episode, rate us 5 stars. On Apple and Spotify, we're trying to get to 100 5-star reviews before the start of the NFL and college football seasons, which are just around the corner. So go ahead, rate us 5 stars. Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcast from. The JT Sports Podcast is available. I appreciate you guys for tuning in.